Hello everybody. Welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having a great day. Ledger has recently restocked their brand new touchscreen devices, the Ledger Flex and the Ledger Stacks, both now available for purchase. I believe it was the Stacks, S-T-A-X, that was actually sold out for a while, as well as brand new colors on their classic Ledger Nano devices, now in Onyx Black, Sapphire Blue, Emerald Green, Pastel Pink, Gold, and Bitcoin Orange, and 10% off on family packs to help you protect your crypto, as well as some limited edition Ledger Nanos as well. The Clay Nation is currently out of stock. Yeah, while I do not work for Ledger, I am an affiliate, and I have an affiliate link in the description below for those of you looking to keep your cryptocurrency safe. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Hello everyone, welcome back to the cycle, I guess, the time of time where everyone, I don't want to say that the optimism has re-rolled back into the market. It's just more of a speculatory time wherein we have seesaw movements in the market. Things go up, things go down, obviously. But everyone's looking towards the goal in some sort of way. We are still, at least at the time of me making this video, at the expected near time frame where Bitcoin is supposed to be edging towards $120,000 to $150,000 by the end of this year. There's a lot going on in the world, and a lot of times things aren't as certain as we'd like them to actually be. The discussions about Bitcoin versus the US dollar and Bitcoin versus gold are, I dare say, never ending, and they probably will not end for a very long time. That's what I mean when I say, like, sometimes we have this like pendulum moving back and forth. It's either a dramatically negative view on Bitcoin and crypto and where the market is, where things could be going, how things might actually pan out. We hear about some kind of an inflow from a company, from BlackRock, from the ETFs. The momentum then shifts to people become more optimistic. Where's Bitcoin's price going to go? And I think we've kind of swung about 70% in the other direction, where people are talking about Bitcoin dominating other assets and Bitcoin taking over gold's placement in Bitcoin, replacing like that kind of thing. In a recent analysis, Matt Haugen, H-O-U-G-A-N, Chief Investment Officer at Bitwise, shared his insights on Bitcoin's price potential, suggesting it could reach 200,000 US dollars without requiring a collapse of the US dollar. We've gone over stuff like this years ago. It gets mentioned every now and again. However, one of the larger mindsets, ideas in the history of crypto and in the history of Bitcoin is what it will do to the US dollar, how low the US dollar has to actually go before Bitcoin can do something against it. This is why I said the dollar/gold narrative continues to persist. And I think this will probably go on until we're at like a multi-million-dollar Bitcoin. That's just a personal feeling. I feel like at $500,000, the conversation will swing to Bitcoin's doing great, but it hasn't taken over the position of gold yet. It takes over the position of gold. Well, that's great. People are still using the US dollar. By the time we get to a multi-million-dollar, I mean, even now, the world should have seen in some sort of way what Bitcoin is actually capable of, but you need the big numbers before people actually end up taking it seriously. The US dollar has already lost 99% of its value to itself since the 1970s and has already, and it took 10 years. There was a whole commotion going on a little bit ago where Bitcoin is officially, air quoting here, has officially been around for 16 years. A lot of people were disputing this and saying that it wasn't necessarily on Halloween, that it was after the date that it was actually released, what have you. So fluctuating between Bitcoin has been around for 15 to 16 years. After 10 years, the US dollar had already lost 99% of its value to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin has already won. We've heard this, you've heard me say it before, you've heard me ranting. Just mathematically, Bitcoin has already won against the US dollar and inflation and all these other kinds of things. However, this one person has suggested that we do not necessarily need to see the US dollar collapse before we see Bitcoin actually reaching new heights or going a lot higher and doing actively well. I personally feel that a lot of the energy within the cryptocurrency space tends to usually lean towards catastrophe than rebirth and joy, in that we assume that for reference, here's how I learned it when I first got into this space, that in order for Bitcoin to succeed, people in Wall Street basically, like on the trading floor where everyone's like screaming and like throwing their hands into the air, that people basically had to have a panic where they were like panicking and selling off all their gold and their gold stocks and their paper gold and what have you, and throwing gold bars out the window. And on that day, and on that day only, would Bitcoin surpass gold. It's kind of the same thing for the US dollar. People catastrophize a little bit in that they think that it'll happen in one swift motion. People will wake up, they'll try to go to the store, and the person behind the counter goes, "I'm sorry, you need an entire pillowcase worth of money today." And they go, "No." And then they run back home and they see that Bitcoin's at 7 million and they go, "I knew it." Like that kind of thing. It's a slow and steady progression. That's what all of this is actually about. Even the idea of Bitcoin reaching several $1 million. It's not going to happen overnight. It is if I can say it this way, a near slow takeover of the system in some sort of way. And a lot of people confuse and kind of and I mainly blame Twitter, because a lot of people have this idea of to the moon right now, tomorrow, 24 hours, 48 hours, like that kind of mentality. Bitcoin's going to do well. And I say this lightly because the world is a bit of a mess right now. Bitcoin will do well regardless of what kind of comes its way. It will have rough days. It will have rough weeks. It will sometimes have rough years. But if the accumulation levels that we've been seeing are indication of its future worth and future things that it's going to do, we're kind of basically on the right track. So this guy came forward and said, we don't really need to see the collapse of the US dollar for Bitcoin to get to six figures and to get to 200K. Dare I say, the collapse of the dollar will probably not really be a thing. It'll probably be similar to like the fall of Rome, where it happened over the course of around like 50 to 100 years. There are even, like, if you are into history or watch documentaries, there are discrepancies as to when the actual fall of Rome took place. The people who don't read history or don't know or don't, read books, a lot of them think like it was kind of overnight. You assume Julius Caesar, no. The next day, like, it's just like dust and ruins. No, like someone. Anyway. Right. Hogan's perspective, shared in a post at the end of October, responded to a financial advisor's question on whether Bitcoin could hit this valuation even under stable economic conditions. His answer? Bitcoin's growth does not depend on the dollar's downfall, but rather on the asset's maturing role as a store of value amid continued fiat currency instability. One of the biggest issues that we're going to probably have for at least another decade or 2 decades is people jumping into the Bitcoin market, not because whatever, they don't want to understand it. And therefore, the question constantly becomes, well, can Bitcoin do it? Is Bitcoin going to go there? Can Bitcoin actually make it? That these were questions, at least for people not in crypto years ago. Bitcoin's at $4,000. Well, can Bitcoin actually hit 10,000? I don't know. The market cap has to go really high. 50K? You think Bitcoin can hit $50,000? I don't know. The market cap has to, so this will kind of continuously be a discussion. And the idea of a stable economic condition kind of has to do, or would be, with the Fed getting inflation under control. I air quoted the heck out of the air right there. But the normal economic policies are still garbage. Even if we do get down to the normal 2% rate of inflation, we've seen what has happened to the US dollar since the 70s just based off of that normal 2% rate. I mean, we haven't really had any normal economic or stable economic situation or condition in a very long time. The reason why markets did exceedingly well after 2008, 2009, 10, 11, 12 is because of money printing and pushing. Like, we haven't had anything stable, like a normal 1 to 2% worth of growth. Everything has kind of been excessive. More money has been printed. More debt has been created. Side note, if you can avoid doom spending, DOOM spending, please do so. Just saw a documentary on another documentary on people right now who are throwing away all of their money, getting into excessive levels of debt because they don't personally see any kind of economic future for themselves. And part of the idea is that, well, if I'm never going to own a home, if I'm never going to have a lot of assets, if I'm never going to have a lot of, in this case, crypto, they're kind of getting themselves in debt in their 20s and 30s, thinking that they can kind of live the high life. And they're going to have a gigantically rude awakening in about 10 to 15 years, if not a good chunk before. Yeah. This is one of the first times we've ever actually had news like this. Most people always kind of throw in a gigantically dramatic thing into it. Bitcoin's going to be just fine. It'll take us a while as we continue to go higher and higher in price and the market matures and more people get into it. But this is why the metrics are very important. How many people are using it? How many people are mining it? How many new addresses do we have per day? Year on year, month on month, how much more money is flowing through the network than the previous years before? All these metrics continue going up. Bitcoin is doing just fine. That's the Bitcoin might. Nah, it's going to reach $200,000 without the US dollar collapsing. If the US dollar collapses, we have a lot more problems than Bitcoin not going to $200,000. And yeah, let's move on. Also in very popular news, Ripple is now aiming to offer bank-grade custody to cryptocurrency businesses. Ripple continues to try and expand in all directions, and I think it's very smart of them. I said years ago, expand, do other things. Their entire purpose for a number of years was just working with banks, just to try and work with US regulators, just to do this one thing, and it was like, okay. And now they seem to be doing exceedingly well as they continue to branch out into different ventures. The idea of custody is probably because of the entire Coinbase thing. I would bet my bottom dollar that someone shook hands with someone else who shook hands with someone else. Because if you missed it earlier this year, before the Bitcoin ETFs were actually launched, a number of companies were listed as the actual custody solution, the custodian, for the 9 different ETFs. And then for some reason, that all got smashed into one name, and that was Coinbase. Even for the other new ETFs that are being filed right now, They're all listing Coinbase as their main custody solution, which also, not that it should be a red flag, but the SEC talks about that they want more. The word's not diversity. It has to do with like decentralization, like having different companies in the space. And it's like, well, if you're green lighting every single company using Coinbase, and should something happen to Coinbase, well, then you made a boo-boo. So this is probably why Ripple's getting into this bank grade level custody, to have like really secure ways of having other companies who probably don't have the money to work with Coinbase basically going forward and saying, hey, we have another large company who we can work with. The firm's Ripple custody branch has been providing global banks and financial institutions with a software infrastructure to secure, transfer, and settle tokenized financial assets. In a statement, Ripple says the technology now features functionalities that will also make bank-grade custody technology available to crypto and fintech businesses as well. Ripple Custody now supports XRP Ledger tokenization features that will allow businesses to tokenize and manage cryptocurrencies, fiat currencies, and RWAs, real-world assets. The updated platform also includes a transaction screening service integration, added hardware security module options, and XRP Ledger integration for tokenizing RWAs, pre-configured policy frameworks, and user interface improvements. I'm really shocked that this wasn't larger news, and I mean, even if simply not because of the XRP Ledger allowing for integration of actual tokenized physical assets, which is going to be a big thing and has become a rather large thing. There are usually a lot of articles of BlackRock, Fidelity, you name it. These companies, JP Morgan, working on basically tokenizing like real world assets. The idea is being able to move the value of these things on chain, because you can't necessarily do it through the stock market. You can create a fund or a trust or an ETF and basically have people have access to the digitized version of that asset. Let's say you have a bunch of diamonds and you say, we want to tokenize all these diamonds, and basically we can transfer the value through the actual ETF. This takes a while-ish. You have to get approval, and this has to happen, and this has to take place, and this has to so-and-so. But the idea for the future, for those of you who missed the other conversations we were having, is basically kind of the digitization of everything. It's as dystopian as you might actually imagine. It's the idea that if you can't own an entire home, well, guess what? You can own a couple of bricks. That's not a joke. That's an actual thing that's currently going on that people are working on. If you can't own land, well, guess what? You can own 5 feet by 5 feet worth of it on this plot of land that someone is selling. You can buy parcels of these things, on and on and on. But also like the extra fractionalization of it. We saw a lot of that during the advent of NFTs. For those of you who missed that, a lot of they're not called world museums, national museums. There we go. National museums have been buying NFTs for a number of years now. And a lot of other companies have also been buying NFTs, and they have this like fractionalization thing kind of going on. So they'll buy a Banksy and they will promote it as, well, if you can't afford a Banksy on your own, you can have 1/20,000th of it, and you can buy parcels of it. So therefore, at some point, it works two ways. If you decide, I want to cash in the money that my Banksy has made over the last 8 years of rising in value, you can sell your digitized parcels and or wait for these companies to sell it on their own. Usually most companies will sell after a 10 to 15 year time frame, as it is noted that historically art tends to appreciate by 10, 15, 20% in value year on year. And therefore, after 10 to 15 years, they'll sell the actual thing and you'll kind of just be reimbursed the new money that you would have made. You know, you kind of get the idea. So this will become an even larger thing. I don't know how people have managed. I think it's just ignorance. I think a lot of it has to do with fear of, it's not change so much as like admitting you were incorrect a number of years ago. The way that people ignore Ripple and what they do, and them working with central banks and helping central banks tokenize things on the actual blockchain, and who knows? I think people just kind of like to be ridiculously tribal, where one thing has to be the only solution for things working out. But we've seen that a lot within the cryptocurrency space, and that's just not the way that things are. So yeah, we will probably, I don't know if we're actually going to hear anything about this. A lot of companies who are probably working with Ripple are probably going to be signing both ways some kind of an NDA, non-disclosure agreements, where we may see them on the chain, but we won't necessarily know that Amazon or Google is digitizing things on the actual blockchain and working with Ripple. So who knows? We may have a company who kind of pops up at some point, kind of like MicroStrategy, and says, hey, we're working with Ripple, we're buying XRP, and we're digitizing stuff on the chain. Then we'll hear about it, but you don't usually realize that a lot of the big money, similar to like people who have actual wealth, like it's silent. Like you don't go around boasting about all the money that you have. It happens in the background as you continue to basically make money moves. Yeah. That's the Ripple digital custody on chain. And yeah, let's move on. Also in popular news, Robinhood Crypto has announced that they're adding Lumens and XRP for European Union users. They announced, this was 2 or 3 weeks ago, there were two other coins as well. Was it? No, it wasn't Dogecoin. I don't remember what it was. Robinhood Crypto in Europe announced, I think, staking for 2 different coins. I can't remember exactly which ones they were, though. Users can withdraw and deposit their Lumens on the platform for a 1% deposit bonus. And it says Lumens fell by 1% in a day. Sure, why not? Robinhood Crypto EU on Wednesday said it has decided to add Lumens to crypto transfers, increasing the number of cryptocurrencies supported in the service. Lumen's price continued to drop, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, Robinhood continues adding stuff onto their platform. I think it makes major news because a lot of people really like Robinhood, as we've gone over before, whatever that reason might actually be. Anytime Robinhood does anything, people kind of clamor around it. And maybe that's why they even had it in the news that the price actually fell, because typically, if Robinhood says they're adding something or adding staking for something, and this has been added to their platform, that coin goes up by like 17% over the course of a 24-hour period. Yeah, that's the Stellar Lumens now on Robinhood. And yeah, let's move on. Also in news, why is this up here? Okay. Payment giant Stripe has completed the acquisition of a stablecoin platform Bridge following a deal valued at over $1 billion. The stablecoin news does not let up. It continues. It is absolutely ridiculous. For those of you who are unaware, a number of governments have announced that they are not going to be creating central bank. That's a mosquito bite. Are not going to be creating a central bank digital currency. However, they're going to be creating a stable coin. We first heard rumors of this around last year. And then we kind of were basically told from the people from Ripple that they're working with a dozen central banks who are currently making their stable coins, and they're going to be putting it on the XRP blockchain. Stable coins in this space make an enormous amount of money. We're seeing regulations rapidly beginning to roll out for them. A lot of people believe, I don't know if this is necessarily true or how big that it's actually going to be. I think a huge portion of this sentence is going to be hype. A lot of people believe that stable coins are basically going to be the new fiat, if you will, which is also absolutely terrible and dystopian simply because they have complete control over stable coins as well. The idea from people a while ago was that stable coins would be more decentralized, and stable coins are as centralized as can possibly be, as centralized as the US dollar. They're controlled by a company. But everyone's trying to get into the game now. If you missed around April, we heard that Tether is doing around $1 trillion. I think it's $1 trillion across all the different crypto exchanges and on-chain. $1 trillion worth of movements every single month, and the fees that they're getting from that are astronomical. So every 3 months, the people from Tether are also, I think, using 15% of their profits and using that to buy Bitcoin. So I think these other companies are realizing that instead of making fun of stable coins like they did years ago, they're now getting into it, similar to the news that we saw with the Wall Street Journal actively lying about Tether and talking about how Tether has this and Tether's doing this and so and so. And anywho, yeah, there's a lot of really big money to be made in this. I'm always taken aback at how popular stablecoin news actually ends up being, simply because it's stablecoin news. Like, people used to ask me on this channel years ago, was I investing in stablecoins? That's like, am I investing in the US dollar? It is a one-to-one peg often to the US dollar. It doesn't do anything. A lot of them will give you a substantial year on year yield. Like, some of the stable coins will give you like 5, 6, 7%, but I'd rather my crypto do like a 4x. And then also that, okay. Without revealing any details, Michael Arrington, co-founder of TechCrunch, confirmed the acquisition on Twitter, noting that the acquisition cost Stripe around $1.1 billion US dollars. As of press time, the companies have yet to make an official statement about the purchase. Yeah, cool. I don't think a lot of these are actually going to work. There's a reason why Tether and I mean to another extent why Circle Coin kind of remain the main stable coins out there. There's not a lot of hubbub for these outside of companies. Companies think that they smell money in the streets, if you will, and they think that everyone wants them. The only people who really want them are large companies who are trading and or day traders. Outside of that, the other interest that we've seen comes from people in Argentina and maybe in Turkey and a couple of other places who are using it to like actively combat inflation. But even that, those numbers are also not like in the hundreds of billions. So we're seeing a lot of these companies launching stable coins, launching initiatives, acquiring companies. Next year, we're probably going to have around 15 different stable coins launching. We've seen some already pegged to the yen, pegged to the euro. What's the other currency recently as well? There was another one, and they don't get back into the news because no one's using them. There's this misconception from these companies that money. They think that everything is just like, well, people are using it now, they want to use it even more, and it's like the correct demographic isn't actually there. So yeah, I think stable coins will be with us for probably, I dare say, forever, for a very long time in the space, but we may probably only see a third and a fourth actually enter the space as like a big contender. But even then, Circle is like also not doing that well, and Coinbase is constantly promoting them and locking up the Circle coin on the base chain to tell people that other people are using it when it's just Coinbase locking up their own coin to say that people are using it. I know, it's very weird. I do hope that you've all enjoyed. I do hope that you all are doing well. Hope you all are having a great day, a great morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever the heck you might be. I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.